There's a feeling almost nobody admits to, one that's been whispered across centuries. It's not something we talk about at dinner parties, but we've all felt it in fleeting moments, a quiet, hidden reaction that flickers in the back of our minds. A quiet satisfaction that's almost too uncomfortable to acknowledge. It's that subtle moment when we see someone stumble. When someone else fails. Especially someone who seemed untouchable. Someone who had everything together. Someone who appeared to be winning at a game you secretly felt you were losing. Especially someone successful. Because success is never just success. Success is comparison. It forces people to measure where they stand in relation to someone else. Confident. The kind of person who walks into a room and never seems to doubt themselves. The kind of person many admire, but quietly envy. Talented. The musician who learns faster. The student who understands quicker. The creator whose work effortlessly gets attention. Talent can inspire people. But it can also make them uncomfortable. Ambitious. The person willing to sacrifice comfort today for a better future tomorrow. The person who keeps moving while others remain standing still. Maybe you felt it before. Maybe not consciously. Maybe only for a moment. A tiny flash of relief when someone you compared yourself to suddenly became less intimidating. A celebrity loses everything. The headlines spread instantly. Millions watch. Millions comment. Millions analyze every mistake. Not because they know that person. Because the fall itself becomes fascinating. A class topper finally breaks down. The person everyone assumed had life figured out suddenly becomes vulnerable. Human. Imperfect. Just like everyone else. A wealthy entrepreneur gets exposed. A business collapses. A public mistake goes viral. Overnight, admiration turns into criticism. And strangely, many people find comfort in watching it unfold. And somewhere deep inside, something feels good. Not joy. Not happiness. Something subtler. A feeling that the gap between you and them has suddenly become smaller. Not because you're evil. Not because you enjoy suffering. Human beings are far more complicated than that. Because beneath our kindness, our empathy, and our morality, there are ancient psychological mechanisms that evolved long before modern society existed. And some of them are uncomfortable to look at. Many people don't just fear failure. They fear what success in other people says about their own lives. Their own choices. Their own unrealized potential. Which is why failure becomes entertainment. Why scandals spread. Why public downfalls attract millions of viewers. Why people gather to watch someone else's world collapse. Especially when those people represent something they secretly wish they had. More confidence. More discipline. More success. More courage. The stronger the comparison, the greater the emotional reaction. Because once you understand this pattern, you start noticing it everywhere. In friendships. In workplaces. In social media. Even in yourself. And that's where this story truly begins. The Germans have a word for this feeling. A word so precise that no English translation fully captures it. Schadenfreude. A strange emotional experience hiding inside almost every human being. Quite literally, it means finding pleasure in someone else's pain. Especially when that person once appeared above you. And despite sounding cruel, it's astonishingly common. Psychologists consider it one of the most universal social emotions humans experience. For decades, psychologists have tried to understand why otherwise decent people sometimes enjoy watching others fail. What they discovered was fascinating. Schadenfreude doesn't happen randomly. Certain people trigger it far more than others. People who are successful. The individual society places at the top of the hierarchy. Admired. Respected. The kind of people others look up to. Wealthy. Powerful. Living a life many secretly wish they had. Attractive. Charismatic. Naturally gifted in ways others notice immediately. Or socially dominant. The people who seem to win without struggle. Why? Because human beings are comparison machines. As Yuval Noah Harari explains in Sapiens, status within the tribe once determined survival itself. And most of this happens unconsciously. Long before logic enters the conversation. Your brain is constantly scanning the social environment asking, where do I stand? Am I ahead, or am I falling behind? When someone appears superior, they become a living reminder of what you haven't achieved yet. And that creates tension. Their success becomes evidence that more was possible. And that's often uncomfortable to face. But then something changes. They fail. And the entire emotional equation shifts. Suddenly the pressure disappears. The comparison weakens. The threat fades. They become human again. Smaller. Relatable. Safe. No longer a threat to your self-image. This helps explain why modern culture has become obsessed with public humiliation. Every scandal becomes a social spectacle. Millions gather online to watch reputations collapse in real time. Not because they know the person. Because the psychology feels rewarding. Watching powerful people fall gives ordinary people something rare, emotional relief. Ancient Romans filled giant arenas to watch suffering unfold before their eyes. The spectacle itself was the attraction. Today we no longer gather in colosseums. We gather on social media. Different technology. Same psychology. Human nature has changed far less than we like to believe. Success does something strange to human relationships. It doesn't just change your life. It changes the way people see you. More importantly, it reveals things that were always there, hidden beneath the surface. Your discipline exposes laziness. Your confidence exposes insecurity. Your ambition exposes excuses. Not because you intend to judge anyone, but because your actions become a mirror that reflects what others would rather avoid seeing. This is why self-improvement often creates distance between people. Not because success is selfish. But because growth naturally changes the emotional equilibrium that relationships were built upon. Imagine two friends starting from the same place. One decides to wake up earlier, learn new skills, build something meaningful, and slowly reinvent themselves through consistent effort. The other stays exactly where they are. Same routines. Same habits. Same complaints. Same comfort zone. Nothing changes because nothing is challenged. At first, the transformation feels inspiring. It proves change is possible. But over time, inspiration can quietly evolve into discomfort, especially when the gap between two lives continues to grow. Every improvement sends a silent message. Every book read. Every workout completed. Every risk taken. It raises a question many people would rather not answer: if they can do it, why aren't I? And that's where the psychology becomes uncomfortable. Rather than confronting their own potential, some people unconsciously hope the successful person stumbles. Because failure removes the need for self-reflection. This is why stories about burnout spread so quickly. The disciplined person collapses. The entrepreneur loses momentum. The confident person struggles. And suddenly, the comparison feels less threatening. Deep down, what many people seek isn't fairness. It's psychological comfort. Equality feels safe because nobody has to question themselves. But inadequacy forces growth. And growth is often far more painful than people realize. From an evolutionary perspective, humans are tribal creatures. For almost all of human history, survival depended on belonging to a group. Long before governments, corporations, or social media existed, there was the tribe. And the tribe meant survival. As Yuval Noah Harari explains in *Sapiens*, being rejected by your tribe wasn't merely uncomfortable, it could be fatal. The human brain evolved to fear exclusion because exclusion once meant death. But belonging wasn't enough. Status mattered too. Every tribe had hierarchies. Leaders. Followers. Hunters. Protectors. Your position within the group often determined access to resources, mates, and influence. Throughout history, individuals who accumulated too much status often made others uncomfortable. Exceptional people change group dynamics. Their success shifts attention, influence, and power away from everyone else. Over time, groups developed subtle ways of regulating status. Not through violence alone, but through social pressure. Through ridicule. Through judgment. Through making sure nobody rose too far above the collective. Mockery. Gossip. Social exclusion. Celebrating mistakes. These behaviors may seem petty, but evolutionarily they served a purpose. They helped groups control status differences and keep ambitious individuals from becoming too dominant. Even today, people often attack those who rise too quickly. Not always because they hate them. Sometimes because rapid success creates uncertainty. It disrupts the familiar social order people have grown comfortable with. This explains a painful reality many ambitious people eventually discover. People often support your dreams when they seem unlikely. The dream is harmless. Entertaining, even. But the moment it starts becoming real, the emotional atmosphere changes. Because success creates comparison. It silently asks difficult questions. If someone from your environment can transform their life, what does that say about the excuses everyone else continues to make? This is why envy almost never announces itself openly. It hides behind criticism, sarcasm, excessive concern, passive negativity. Most people don't consciously think, "I resent your success." Instead, they convince themselves they're simply being realistic. And that makes envy far more difficult to recognize, even in ourselves. Social media didn't create envy, comparison, or resentment. Those emotions have existed for thousands of years. What technology changed was scale. As Harari explains in *Sapiens*, humans evolved in tribes of roughly 50 to 150 people. For most of history, the people you compared yourself to were your neighbors, your family, and a handful of individuals within your social circle. Today, before you've even had breakfast, your brain may compare itself to thousands of people across the planet. Every time you open your phone, you're exposed to a curated highlight reel of humanity. Wealth. Beauty. Status. Relationships. Luxury. Achievement. The rational part of your mind understands these are carefully selected moments. But the deeper, older parts of your brain don't process them as content. They process them as social information. As evidence of where others stand in the hierarchy. And where you stand relative to them. The result is something our ancestors never had to experience. Continuous comparison without rest. For thousands of generations, comparison had natural limits. Today there are none. There is always someone richer. More attractive. More successful. More accomplished. More admired. The human nervous system was never designed to evaluate itself against millions of competitors simultaneously. Yet that is exactly what modern technology asks it to do every day. This is why public failure has become such a powerful form of entertainment. When the perfect influencer gets exposed. When the millionaire reveals their struggles. When the celebrity embarrasses themselves publicly. The illusion breaks. Suddenly, the people who seemed superhuman become human again. Their imperfections reduce the psychological distance between them and everyone watching. And for a brief moment, the pressure of comparison fades. This is why outrage spreads faster than understanding. Why public humiliation attracts more attention than wisdom. Why digital mobs form so easily. Not because modern society suddenly became more cruel than previous generations, but because technology amplified ancient instincts that evolved long before smartphones existed. The Roman Colosseum disappeared. The human fascination with spectacle never did. Today, the arena simply fits inside our pockets. If you're trying to improve your life, understand this carefully. Not everyone watching your journey wants to see it succeed. Most won't say it. Most won't even admit it to themselves. But some people will quietly hope you fail, because your growth creates discomfort they don't know how to process. Not loudly. Not directly. Silently. Through subtle doubt. Through reduced enthusiasm. Through a strange absence of support. The resentment rarely announces itself openly. It hides behind politeness, distance, and indifference. Especially if you become disciplined. Financially successful. Attractive. Independent. Mentally resilient. Because every transformation changes your position within the social hierarchy. And human beings have always paid attention to status, whether they realize it or not. Transformation changes social dynamics. The version of you people understood begins disappearing. The insecure version. The predictable version. The version that reinforced the story everyone had about who you were supposed to be. Not every relationship is built around growth. Some are built around shared frustration. Shared insecurity. Shared complaining. Shared stagnation. And when one person begins changing, the invisible foundation holding that relationship together starts to crack. Ideally, people evolve together. But often they don't. And when growth becomes uneven, some people attempt to restore balance by pulling the ambitious person back toward who they used to be. Not because they're evil. Because familiarity feels safer than change. This is why growth often feels lonely. Not because you're surrounded by enemies. But because every meaningful transformation creates distance between who you are becoming and who you used to be. The painful truth is that some relationships survive only when everyone remains emotionally equal. Growth disrupts that balance. Not because nobody loves you. But because personal evolution sometimes requires psychological separation before new forms of connection can emerge. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Everything we've discussed so far isn't just about other people. It's about you, too. Because no human being is completely immune to comparison, envy, or resentment. Every person has looked at someone else's life and wondered why they seemed ahead. Every person has compared. Every person has envied. It's one of the most universal experiences in human psychology. And if we're honest, most of us have felt a subtle sense of relief when someone intimidating stumbled. Not because we wished them harm. But because their fall temporarily reduced the pressure of comparison. The real danger begins when these feelings stop being temporary emotions and start becoming part of who you are. When resentment becomes identity, it quietly reshapes the way you see the world. Instead of learning from people, you begin competing with them. Every achievement becomes a threat. Every success becomes a challenge. Every interaction becomes an unconscious contest you never agreed to play. This is what makes resentment so deceptive. It rarely feels like envy. It disguises itself as logic. As skepticism. As intellectual criticism. The mind becomes remarkably skilled at hiding uncomfortable truths from itself. Yet beneath the arguments, beneath the criticism, beneath the negativity, there is often something much simpler. Unresolved insecurity. A wound that comparison keeps reopening again and again. Carl Jung believed that what irritates us in others often reveals something hidden within ourselves. Sometimes the people we resent most are not our enemies. They are reflections of qualities we abandoned, neglected, or never had the courage to develop. So what do you do with this knowledge? First, understand human nature without becoming cynical. The goal isn't to become suspicious of everyone. The goal is awareness. Human beings are flawed, emotional, insecure, contradictory. And if we're honest, that description includes us too. Second, stop seeking universal approval. It has never existed, and it never will. No matter who you become, someone will misunderstand you. Someone will criticize you. Someone will compare themselves to you. That is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a consequence of being human. The moment you begin growing, you will trigger comparison in other people. Not because you intended to. Not because you're trying to prove anything. But because growth naturally creates contrast. And contrast makes people reflect on their own lives. The healthiest people understand something powerful. Excellence is not a threat. It's a teacher. Instead of asking, why them, they ask, what can I learn from them? The difference between envy and inspiration is often a single decision. Over time, both success and failure reveal character. Success reveals who celebrates your victories. Failure reveals who stays when there is nothing to gain. Together, they become filters that help you recognize the people who genuinely want the best for you. In the end, human nature contains both darkness and wisdom. Envy and admiration. Fear and courage. Resentment and compassion. The challenge is not eliminating the darkness. The challenge is becoming aware enough to choose which side guides your actions. Because awareness is where freedom begins. If this video changed the way you see human behavior, subscribe for more deep psychology and philosophical explorations. Because understanding the human mind may be the most important skill in modern life.